Hello everybody, welcome to the Wonky Angle, where I talk about electronic music, both new and old. And today I'm talking about the 5th album from Orbital, The Middle of Nowhere. Alright then, now this review is going to be similar to my review of the Brown album, because, like that album, the nostalgia is kinda inconsistent. This album has the first track I ever heard from Orbital being Spare Parts Express, and the third track I ever heard from them being Style. Now, this album technically was on iTunes when I was little, but it was kind of a weird special case. See, iTunes only had half of the album available. It was just I Don't Know You People, Otonio, Nothing Left 1, and Style. Now that sounds bad enough already to only have one part of Nothing Left and not the other, but on top of that, iTunes screwed up and switched the titles of Nothing Left 1 and Style. If you previewed one of those two, you'd hear the other. I don't even know how the fuck that happened. Thankfully, iTunes corrected its mistakes later and the whole thing's available now, but the bad handling of that album made me avoid buying anything from there. Figured I could get it all from my uncle, who had the CD somewhere instead, and that's what I did. There was a part of me that whenever listening to this album, I would expect Spare Parts Express to cut off at the end and switch to Walk Now because of that recommendation CD. But nowadays I think I've managed to stop that part of my brain, and as I rarely listen to this album except in one unbroken piece. I don't listen to Style by itself, I don't listen to Spare Parts Express by itself, maybe Nothing Left 1 and 2 by themselves every once in a blue moon, but usually I only listen to The Middle of Nowhere. All in one go, or not at all. Because it's clearly an album meant to flow together like that. It's really tight, everything moves at the same fast and blood-pumping tempo. It's so cohesive and well-constructed that it trumps my inconsistent nostalgia. So without any further ado, let's get right into it. The first track is Way Out. The first thing you hear is this weird, exotic, off-kilter sample that repeats a few times. Then epic string wash, then muted piano melody, then tone-setting breakbeat that sets up the tempo and atmosphere for pretty much the whole album. Fast-paced, ethereal, intense, driving, absolutely fantastic. There's also little detours with some vocals from Barbara Cohen, the same person who did that weird pitch-down voice at the beginning of Radiant by Air, which still kind of blows my mind, but I digress. There's also a lot of trumpets on this track, giving it a weird Mexican flavor on top of everything else. It's a really nice touch. And then it flows directly into Spare Parts Express. I don't even know where to start with this track. It's the longest single track, besides Nothing Left, which is split into 2 parts. This track is just over 10 minutes, proceeds to take you on a wild and crazy journey. Lots of different sunny synth melodies come and go. And they're all fantastic. The track even takes a random turn for the dark and creepy later on, that somehow I totally grooved with as a kid. Even yelling along with that little sample from Carnival of Souls. Why can't anybody hear me? To say this track changed my life would be an understatement. Not only did it blow my mind that I could have so much fun listening to a track that was 10 minutes long, and that a song 10 minutes long even existed, at least until I discovered Out There Somewhere and felt compelled to contact Guinness World Records. It kicked off my journey into all things electronic music. Still freaking amazing to this day. But just as the track slows down to the pace it started at, suddenly and we're into the dark and intriguing passages of Nowhere to Run. In some ways, this song is kind of like the remind of this album. It's a song that carries out of a long 10-minute epic and is tasked with keeping up that momentum, but this is a way better song than Remind. It's percussive, it's dark, it's dramatic, it has several catchy passages like Loved it on first listen. And then there's, I Don't Know You People. This is easily the most aggressive track on the album, and it's one of the loudest and most intense tracks they've ever done, if not the most. At first I didn't like its extreme nature, and it was my least favorite track on the album for a long time. On top of that, it was also the last track I heard from the album, so the least nostalgia as well. But I don't know, it's grown on me a lot. This track really gets you moving, almost kind of like a Prodigy track or something. It goes all over the place and nails every hook. And a little oh wow, and these other voice samples from the movie The Legend of Hell House, and just that little extra bit of memorability. Don't know good, don't know good, nothing changes, nothing, God damn you! So yeah, this track is like the petrol of this album. Would have been easy least favorite before, but I don't know if I can honestly give it that honor now. It's just so much fun. The other choice for least favorite would be Otonio. But even that one's a wonderfully epic track. The guest vocals from Puka are probably the main thing that set this track apart. Mainly because I can understand a fair amount of what they're saying. I mean, not everything. I want to be daddy's spiraling. I don't even know what that means. But that doesn't keep me from singing along with it. And after that, I want nothing at all. And the other synth hooks that play here are awesome too. It just gives this track a sense of hugeness to it. So yeah, I guess I don't have a least favorite on this one, because it sure as hell isn't any of the other tracks on here. Nothing Left, our much mentioned 15-minute two-parter track, is probably my favorite track on the album. Kinda like the Are We Here equivalent on this album that just so happens to have even more nostalgia. Part 1 has this dark, metallic ambient intro that's really cool. All these samples of this creepy laughing, and of course, plenty of Alison Goldfrapp singing nonsense as usual. It's great and all, but it's basically all build up, while Part 2 is the payoff. It brings in this catchy synth melody, which is so fucking awesome. And some of the Alison Goldfrapp vocals. Ooh, I was it. And this awesome little side section with some vocoders in it. Which was in part 1 as well, but whatever. And then this really long build-up of like little 8-bit chiptune-y bleeps and bloops leading up to a payoff that is so well worth it. With all those catchy melodies and that vocoder section one more time. And then the ending with metallic ambience again. Just so much awesomeness in this track, and I love all of it. Makes me so happy. I'm not sure if this track is better than Are We Here. I mean, it's more simplistic, but it's also got more nostalgia, as I heard it long before I ever got to hear Civilization or Live at Glastonbury in its entirety. I really wish this track got more recognition, to be honest, but unfortunately it seems a remix they did of this track ended up getting more attention. Much Ado About Nothing Left. Which is nice and all, but isn't nearly as fun as the original, to be brutally honest. I rarely listen to that remix. But regardless, the album ends with Style. This track is probably the most out of place, but to me it works really well as like a happy ending that, you know, slows things down at the end of a lot of aggressive break beats. Kinda got some like Kraftwerk-y vibes to it at first, with this kind of slow but happy melody, kind of like a Neon Lights kind of thing going for it. But it gets really intense and dense later on, bringing in lots of layers of high-pitched synths, a cool bassy percussion breakdown, and later a sample of Dollars Oh L'Amour. Now I'm aching for you, now I'm aching for you, now I'm And just ending kind of the same way it started, a very uplifting and feel-good note closing out the album. And the nostalgia from having been the third song I ever heard from Orbital certainly doesn't hurt either. And I wasn't really sure what the message behind this album was, or never really picked up there would be a message in the first place, despite the maybe kinda unfitting title and album cover. I mean, you'd think the middle of nowhere would be a lot more desolate, kind of like this blank cover aside from that little blurry guy in the corner. And when you actually, open up the CD and look through the liner notes here, it's all, blurry pictures of, everyday people going about their everyday lives, and wasn't really sure what they were going for there. But one person on Discogs proposed a theory that this album was really a continuation of the theme seen in the video of The Box. Basically, the middle of nowhere is everyday society. We move too fast and never take a break, therefore isolating ourselves. So we should find our way out, as it were. Come to think of it, that's, really close to the theme Paul ended up doing on 858. The breaking out of time's tyranny. I mean, that album goes about the message in a very different way, but still, interesting theory there. Definitely brings the album up just that little bit more for me. But while that message is a cool way to tie everything in this album together, the main reason I enjoy this album so much is just because it's so bombastic and fun. All these tracks are similar to each other, but not to the point of being indistinguishable or individually unmemorable in any way. It's super tight and cohesive. And the nostalgia too. I mean, I don't know what else to say, really. It's yet another fantastic entry into a long-running series of fantastic albums Orbital had released, and another absolute must-listen. Overall feeling a solid 9 out of 10. But of course, this is just my opinion. You can feel free to disagree with it, but I'd like to hear your thoughts, so leave the comments in the comment thing down there. But yeah, that's pretty much it. That's all for today. See you next time.